H1. The Council regrets everything after humans leave without a word. H1. Part 5. The Reckoning. H2. Ambassador Phelan returned to the Council station on a gray morning. The station itself looked different now. Lights flickered in hallways that used to glow with steady brightness. The air had a faint metallic taste that had not been there before. Maintenance drones sat motionless in their docking bays, waiting for commands from software that no longer existed. The great silver moon of the Galactic Council was slowly going dark. Phelan walked through the corridors with the pile of unsigned treaties pressed against his chest. Delegates and workers moved past him, and he could see the change in their faces. The confidence was gone. The pride was gone. What remained was the look of people who had suddenly realized that the ground beneath their feet was not as solid as they had believed. He reached the council chamber and found High Speaker Tolvan waiting for him. Tolvan stood at the center of the great hall, alone. The seats around him were empty. He had cleared the room for this meeting because he already knew what Phelan was going to say. Phelan placed the treaties on the podium. The red ink marking them as unsigned and void caught the light. They refused, Phelan said. Tolvan looked at the treaties for a long time. He did not pick them up. He did not touch them. He simply stared at the red marks as if they were wounds. "Tell me everything," he said. Phelan told him. He told him about the ships and the stations, and the technology that was decades ahead of anything the Council had. He told him about Captain Bae Sujin and her calm, steady voice, and the way she had said no without anger or hate, just simple certainty. He told him about the blue-green world and the silver rings and the lights that glowed on the night side. "They do not need us," Phelan said. "They never needed us. We needed them, and we were too blind and too proud to see it." Tolvan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were different. The calm authority that had defined him for decades was cracking. Beneath it was something raw and old. It was the face of a man who understood that he had made a mistake so large that it could not be fixed. The next day, Tolvan called a full assembly. Every delegate, every ambassador, every counselor in the galaxy was ordered to attend. The great hall was packed. Species that had not spoken to each other in years sat side by side, united by the same fear. Tolvan stood at the podium and did something he had never done before. He told the truth. 300 years ago, humanity joined this council, he began. His voice was quiet, and the hall was so silent that every word reached the farthest seats. They came to us with open hands. They offered their skills, their knowledge, their labor, and their loyalty. They asked for one thing in return. They asked to be treated as equals. He paused. The silence pressed down like a weight. We refused. Not once, not twice. 114 times they asked for equal treatment, and 114 times we said no. We told ourselves that they were too young, too simple, too different. We used their doctors, and their engineers, and their soldiers, and we told ourselves that this was enough, that they should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. Dremeth sat in the front row. His scales were pale, almost gray. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few months. The plague on his worlds had finally been slowed by his own scientists, but only after 2 million of his people had died. 2 million lives lost because a human doctor's work had been filed under low priority. Tolvan continued, "When they left, they did not attack us. They did not threaten us. They did not demand payment or revenge. They simply left, and in their silence, they said everything that needed to be said. They said that we were not worth talking to." A murmur ran through the hall, but no one spoke. I sent Ambassador Phelan to bring them back. He offered them everything we had denied them for 3 centuries. A vote, a seat, an apology. They returned our treaties unsigned and told us that we had our chance, and we wasted it. He looked out at the hundreds of faces staring up at him. Some were angry, some were sad, most were simply scared. This council must face the truth. We built our civilization on the backs of a species we refuse to respect. And now that they are gone, we are learning what they were truly worth. He stepped back from the podium. I am not here to assign blame. I am here to tell you that the galaxy we knew is over. We must rebuild, and we must do it without the people we drove away. The hall erupted. Delegates shouted, argued, pointed fingers. Some blamed the humans for leaving. Some blamed Tolvan for not acting sooner. Some sat quietly and said nothing at all, because they understood that blame did not matter anymore. Weeks passed. The council began the long, painful process of rebuilding. They trained new engineers to maintain the reactors, but the work was slow and the failures were frequent. They developed their own medical programs, but they were years behind where the humans had been. Trade routes were redrawn, alliances were remade, and everywhere, in every system, the absence of humanity was felt like a missing limb. And then, on a quiet evening 3 months after Phelan's return, something happened. Every screen on the council station lit up at the same time. Every communication channel, every display, every personal device in council space suddenly showed the same image. A woman standing at a podium, wearing a simple dark suit. She had sharp eyes and a calm face, and she looked directly into the camera as if she could see every person watching. Her name was Park Ji-hye, and she was the new Speaker of the United Human Assembly. She did not smile. She did not make threats. She did not ask for anything. She simply looked into the camera and spoke. This message is for the Galactic Council and all its member species. My name is Park Ji-hye. I speak for humanity. The council chamber fell silent. Every delegate froze. Tolvan gripped the edge of his seat so hard that his knuckles turned white. For 300 years, humanity served your council with loyalty, skill, and hope. We built your machines. We cured your diseases. We fought your wars. We asked only to be seen as equals, and you refused us every time. Her voice was not angry. It was not cold. It was simply clear, like water running over stone. We did not leave because we hated you. We left because we finally understood that no amount of service would ever change how you saw us. We were tools to you. Useful, but not valuable. Necessary, but not equal. She paused. In the council chamber, Dremeth lowered his head. Phelan stared at the screen with tears in his old eyes. Tolvan did not move. We have built a new home, a new civilization, a future that belongs to us alone. We did not need your permission, and we do not need your approval. We only needed to stop giving ourselves to people who did not care. She reached down and touched something off screen. When she looked back up, her eyes were steady and final. You had us. You had our hands, our minds, our hearts. You had 300 years of loyalty that most species would never offer. And you chose not to value it. She took a breath. We wish you well, but we will not be coming back. Then the screen went dark. Every channel closed. Every signal stopped. The silence returned, deeper and heavier than before, and this time everyone understood that it was permanent. Tolvan sat in the empty chamber long after the other delegates had left. The lights above him flickered once, twice, and then steadied. The air recyclers wummed their broken hum. Somewhere in the distance, a maintenance alarm beeped softly, waiting for hands that would never come. He looked at the dark screen where Park Ji-hye's face had been, and he understood something that he would carry for the rest of his life. The humans had not punished the council. They had not taken revenge. They had done something far worse. They had simply shown the galaxy what it looked like without them. And the galaxy would never be the same. The council regrets everything after humans leave without a word. Part 4. The Desperate Search. The Council had no choice left. Every attempt to solve the crisis on their own had failed. The reactors were still dying. The plague was still spreading. The supply chains that held the galaxy together were falling apart piece by piece, and no amount of money or politics could put them back together. The elder species who had ruled for centuries with calm confidence were now looking at each other with fear in their eyes. High Speaker Tolvan called a closed meeting with the 6 most powerful council members. The room was small and private, with no cameras and no record. Tolvan looked at each of them and spoke plainly. "We must ask the humans to return." Councillor Dremeth, who had spent weeks watching his people die, nodded immediately. Ambassador Phelan, of the Theric Union, raised his long, pale hand. "I will go," Phelan said. He was old and thin, with a face that showed every year of his long life. He had been a diplomat for over 60 years. He had negotiated treaties between species that hated each other. He had ended wars with words. If anyone could bring the humans back to the table, it was him. At least, that was what he believed. Tolvan gave him a ship, a small crew, and full authority to negotiate on behalf of the Council. "Offer them whatever they want," Tolvan said. "A full vote, a seat among the elder races, resources, territory, whatever it takes." Phelan nodded. "And if they refuse?" Tolvan's expression was hard. "They cannot refuse. The galaxy needs them." Phelan said nothing to that. He simply bowed and left the room. The journey to human space took 11 days. Phelan used the time to prepare. He studied human history, their culture, their psychology. He read every diplomatic exchange between humans and the Council, going back 300 years. What he found disturbed him deeply. The pattern was clear and painful. Humans had asked for equal treatment 114 times. They had submitted formal proposals for voting rights 47 times. They had requested seats on the Science Council, the Health Committee, the Trade Board, and the Security Assembly. Every single request had been denied. Many had not even been read. Phelan found a note attached to one of the early proposals. It had been written by a council clerk over 200 years ago. It said, "Filed under non-priority species requests, no action required." That was what the galaxy had thought of humanity for 3 centuries. No action required. On the 12th day, Phelan's ship crossed into human space. What he saw made him stop breathing. He had expected to find a struggling civilization, a species that had cut itself off from the galaxy's resources and was barely surviving. That was what the Council had assumed. Humans needed the galaxy. They could not survive alone. But that was not what Phelan found. Human space was alive. Ships moved in every direction, sleek and fast, designs he had never seen before. Stations orbited planets in great silver rings, covered in lights and surrounded by traffic. Phelan's sensors detected technology that was at least 2 generations ahead of anything the Council possessed. New propulsion systems, new energy sources, new medical technology, new everything. The humans had not been struggling in the dark. They had been building. For years, probably decades, they had been quietly creating a civilization that did not need the Council at all. And now that they were free, they had advanced faster than anyone thought possible. Phelan's ship was met at the border by a human patrol vessel. It was twice the size of his own ship, and moved with a speed and grace that made his pilot nervous. A calm voice came over the communication channel. "Council vessel, you are entering United Human Space. State your purpose." Phelan straightened his uniform. "I am Ambassador Phelan of the Theric Union, representing the Galactic Council. I request a meeting with your leadership to discuss the restoration of diplomatic relations." There was a pause. Then the voice returned. "Hold your position. You will be escorted." They took him to a station orbiting a blue-green world that his database did not recognize. It was beautiful. covered in oceans and clouds, with cities that glowed softly on the night side. The station itself was enormous, clean and modern, in ways that made the council station look old and tired. Captain Bei Sujin was waiting for him in a plain meeting room. She was a woman in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back, and a uniform that was simple and without decoration. She did not smile when Phelan entered. She did not stand. She simply looked at him and waited. Phelan sat down across from her and placed a folder on the table. Captain Bei, I come with the full authority of the Galactic Council. I am here to discuss terms for humanity's return to the galactic community. Sujin looked at the folder, but did not touch it. There is nothing to discuss. Please, Phelan said, and he meant it. The Council is prepared to offer full voting rights, a permanent seat among the elder species, and a formal apology for past treatment. We are also prepared to offer significant territorial and economic concessions. Sujin tilted her head slightly. You are offering us things we asked for 100 times, and were denied. Yes, Phelan said. He did not try to hide it. And I understand how that looks. But the offer is real. The Council is sincere. Sujin leaned back in her chair. Ambassador, let me tell you what happened when your council denied our requests. Our engineers kept building your reactors. Our doctors kept curing your diseases. Our soldiers kept dying in your wars. We gave and we gave and we gave, and you took everything and told us we were not good enough to sit at your table. Phelan lowered his eyes. I know. And now that the reactors are failing and the plague is killing your people and the supply lines are broken, now you come to us. Not because you respect us, not because you think we are equal, but because you need us. Phelan opened his mouth, but no words came out. She was right, and they both knew it. Sujin reached across the table and picked up the folder. She opened it slowly and looked at the treaties inside. They were beautifully written, full of promises and legal language and official seals. She read each page carefully, taking her time. Then she closed the folder, pushed it back across the table, and said, No. Phelan felt something cold settle in his chest. Captain, please, millions of lives are at stake. They were always at stake, Sujin said. You just did not notice until now. She stood up. We are not coming back, Ambassador. We are not your workers. We are not your soldiers. We are not your tools. We are a civilization, and we have built something better than anything you ever offered us. She reached into a box beside her chair and pulled out a stack of old documents. Phelan recognized them immediately. They were the original treaties between humanity and the Council, signed 300 years ago. Every single one of them was marked in red ink. Unsigned. Void. Sujin placed them on the table in front of Phelan. Take these back to your High Speaker. Tell him that humanity returns his treaties, unsigned, and wishes the Council well. She walked to the door and stopped. Without turning around, she said, You had 300 years to treat us like equals. You chose not to. That choice has consequences. Then she left the room, and Phelan was alone. He sat there for a long time, staring at the pile of unsigned treaties. Outside the window, human ships moved through the stars like silverfish in a dark ocean, fast and free, and going somewhere he could not follow. He picked up the treaties and held them against his chest. They felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. The journey home took 11 days. Phelan did not speak to anyone during the entire trip. The Council regrets everything after humans leave without a word. Part 3, The Plague and the Panic. It started on a small moon called Verath, deep inside Moric space. A mining colony of about 40,000 workers woke up one morning to find that their water tasted strange. By the afternoon, 300 of them were sick. By the evening, The number was 6,000. By the next day, the hospitals were full, and people were dying. The disease moved fast. It caused high fevers, skin that turned gray and hard, and lungs that slowly filled with fluid. The Morag doctors had never seen anything like it. They sent samples to the Central Medical Authority on the Council Station, but the results came back with no match in the database. Whatever this plague was, the Council had no record of it. But the truth was much worse than that. The Council did have a record of it, or rather, it used to. The record had been in the human medical files, which were now gone. For 23 years, a human medical team led by Dr. Cho Nari had been quietly managing this exact disease. It was called Varath syndrome, and it lived in the deep rock of certain moons and planets across 3 star systems. It was deadly to most carbon-based species, but it was also slow and predictable if you knew what to look for. Nari had known what to look for. She had spent half her career studying it, developing treatments, and keeping it from ever becoming a real threat. She had done this work without recognition. Her reports had been filed in the Human Medical Archive, read by no one on the Council. Her requests for better equipment had been denied 4 times. Her proposal to vaccinate the at-risk populations had been rejected because the Council Health Committee had decided that the threat level did not justify the expense. Nari had vaccinated as many people as she could with the limited supplies she had, and she had kept the disease contained through careful monitoring and fast response. Now Nari was gone. Her team was gone. Her medicine was gone. Her records were gone. And Varath syndrome was awake. Within 2 weeks, the plague had spread to 7 colonies across 3 systems. The death toll passed 100,000 and kept climbing. Council medical ships rushed to the affected areas, but they had no treatment and no understanding of how the disease worked. They tried standard antiviral drugs. They did not work. The disease spread anyway, carried through water systems and soil that the Morag miners disturbed every day. High Speaker Tolvan stood in the council chamber and faced the worst crisis of his career. The hall was loud with angry voices. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding action, demanding answers, demanding someone to blame. Councillor Dremeth was the loudest of all. "My people are dying," he roared, his scales dark with fury. "Thousands every day, and you stand there and tell me we do not have a cure? We are the greatest civilization in the galaxy. How is this possible?" Tolvan gripped the edge of his podium. The disease was being managed by human medical personnel. When they left, their research and treatments were removed from our systems. We are working to reconstruct their findings, but it will take time. Time? Dremeth slammed his fist on the table. "My people do not have time." A thin voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Archivist Pellin, a small creature from a species known for their memory and record-keeping. "I may be able to help," Pellin said. "I found a reference in an old budget report. It mentions a human doctor named Cho Nari and a program called the Varath Containment Initiative. The program was funded at the minimum level for 23 years. It appears the humans were managing this disease for us the entire time." The chamber fell silent. Tolvan stared at Pellin. "Why did we not know about this?" Pellin looked at him with calm, unblinking eyes. "We did know, High Speaker. The reports were submitted every year. They were categorized as low-priority human medical activity. No one read them." The silence in the chamber was heavy. Every delegate understood what Pellin was saying. The humans had been protecting them, and the council had not even bothered to pay attention. Far from council space, on a clean and quiet medical ship inside human territory, Dr. Cho Nari sat in her office and read the reports coming out of Varath. She was a woman in her early 40s, with kind eyes and steady hands that had treated thousands of patients over the years. She read the numbers, the death tolls, the descriptions of overflowing hospitals, and desperate doctors who did not understand what they were fighting. She felt sick, not because she was surprised. She had warned the council about this exact situation. She had written reports. She had given presentations. She had begged for resources. And every single time, she had been told that it was not important enough. Her assistant, a young man named Shin Taeho, brought her a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. He was quiet for a moment, watching her face. "You want to help them," he said. It was not a question. Nari closed the report. "Of course I want to help them. People are dying. People who never cared about you. People who laughed when their delegates called us animals." Nari looked at him. "The people dying on those moons are not the ones who laughed, Taeho. They are miners and farmers and children. They never sat in the council chamber. They never made those decisions." Taeho looked down. He knew she was right, but the anger in him was hard to let go of. He had watched Nari work herself to exhaustion for years, only to be ignored again and again. "What does the assembly say?" he asked. "The assembly says we do not interfere. We are no longer part of the council. Their problems are not our problems." "And what do you say?" Nari did not answer. She turned back to the reports and read them again, more slowly this time. The Moric doctors were trying everything they could think of, but without the right knowledge, they were fighting blind. At the current rate, the death toll would reach 1 million within a month. She opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a small data chip. It contained everything. Every treatment protocol, every vaccine formula, every piece of research she had done in 23 years. She had kept a personal copy, as she always did. She held it in her hand and felt its weight, small and light, and worth more than gold. She could send it. One transmission, and millions of lives would be saved. But the assembly had given clear orders. No contact, no help. The silence was the message. Nari put the chip back in the drawer and closed it. She sat alone in her office for a long time after that, listening to the hum of the ship around her. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and far away. On Verath, the hospitals ran out of beds. They put the sick on the floors, in hallways, in storage rooms. Families gathered outside, waiting for news that never came. Children asked their parents why the human doctors were not coming, because the human doctors had always come before, and their parents had no answer. The death toll reached 500,000, then 700,000, then 1 million. Councillor Dremeth stood in the council chamber, and for the first time in his life, his voice was not loud. It was small and broken. "We did this," he said. "We looked at the humans and saw servants. We used their knowledge and their labor and their kindness, and we gave them nothing in return. And now they are gone, and our people are paying the price." Tolvan said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The plague burned on. The council regrets everything after humans leave without a word. Part 2. The First Cracks. 3 days after every human being disappeared from council space, the first problem arrived. It came not with fire or war, but with a quiet beeping alarm on a maintenance console in the Valoran energy grid. A small light turned red, then another, then 50 more. Technician Graal of the Felhrani species stared at his screen and felt his stomach tighten. The power output from Reactor Cluster 7 was dropping. This cluster powered nearly a quarter of the council station and 3 nearby trading hubs. It was one of the largest energy systems in the galaxy, and it had been built, installed, and maintained entirely by human engineers. Graal opened his communication line. "I need a human maintenance team at Cluster 7 immediately." The response came back in seconds. "There are no human maintenance teams available." "Then find one. Sir, there are no human personnel on the station. None at all. Grawl blinked. That could not be right. There were always humans on the station. They ran the reactors. They fixed the water systems. They maintained the air filters and the gravity generators, and 100 other things that nobody thought about until they stopped working. Humans were everywhere. They had always been everywhere. He checked the station registry. Every human name had been removed. Every human quarters was listed as empty. Every human ship that had been docked at the station was gone. Grawl sat very still for a long time. Then he called his supervisor. Within hours, the news had spread through the entire council. The humans were gone, not just from the station, from everywhere. Every human colony in council space was empty. Every human outpost was dark. There was no message, no letter, no explanation, just silence. High Speaker Tolvan called an emergency session of the council. The great hall was full, but the mood was nothing like the usual calm confidence. Delegates whispered to each other with wide eyes and nervous hands. Tolvan stood at the center and raised his arms for silence. "We are aware that the human species has removed itself from council space," he said. His voice was steady, but those who knew him well could see the tension in the way his skin shifted color. "We are attempting to make contact. In the meantime, I assure all delegates that this situation is temporary and manageable." Councillor Dremeth of the Moric Combine stood up. He was large and heavily built, with dark green scales and a deep voice that filled any room. "Temporary," he said. "High Speaker, half my trade fleet cannot leave port because the navigation systems were updated by human programmers, and no one else knows how they work. 3 of my colony worlds are reporting failures in their water treatment plants. Those were human-built systems. I need answers, not assurances." Tolvan kept his expression calm. "We will find solutions. The humans are not the only species capable of engineering." "No," Dremeth said, "but they were the ones doing the engineering. That is the problem." He was right, and everyone in the room knew it. For 300 years, the council had given humans the work that no one else wanted to do. The hard work, the boring work, the dangerous work. Humans built the reactors because it was too risky for other species. Humans maintained the deep space relays because it was too lonely. Humans designed the medical equipment because it required too much patience. And they had done all of it without complaint, because they had believed that one day the council would recognize their value. That day had never come. And now the humans had stopped waiting. Far away, in a quiet office on a ship that no council scanner could find, Engineer Yoon Dae-ho sat in front of a dark screen and drank his tea. He was a thin man in his 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years working on council technology, and he knew every system better than anyone alive. He also knew exactly how to break them. That had been his job during Operation Quiet Sky. Not to destroy anything. The Assembly had been very clear about that. They were not at war. They were simply leaving. But before they left, Dae-ho had been ordered to remove every piece of human knowledge from council databases. Every blueprint, every maintenance manual, every software update, every medical formula. Everything that humans had created or improved over 3 centuries was quietly erased, copied to human servers, and deleted from council systems. It had taken him 2 years to do it. He had worked alone, in secret, moving through the vast digital networks of the council like a ghost. No one had noticed. No one had even thought to check. Why would they? Humans were just the workers. They did not matter enough to watch. Dae-ho set down his tea and looked at the empty screen. He did not feel guilty. He had spent his whole career being ignored by species who used his work every day without a word of thanks. He had watched human inventions get credited to alien scientists. He had seen human engineers denied promotions because they were not culturally suited for leadership. He had given his best years to a system that saw him as a tool, and now that tool was gone. Let them figure it out on their own, he thought. Let them learn what the tools were really worth. Back on the council station, the problems were growing faster than anyone could fix them. Reactor Cluster 7 dropped to 40% output, and the backup systems, also human-designed, were failing too. The air recycling system on the station's lower levels began producing a strange smell. 3 food processing plants on nearby worlds shut down because their automated controls had been part of the erased database. Tolvan sent message after message into human space. He used every channel, every frequency, every diplomatic code. He received nothing back. The silence was total and complete. Counselor Dremeth demanded a military response. Send ships to the human border, he said. Make them talk to us. Tolvan shook his head. And what will we say? Give us back our workers? We cannot force an entire species to return. Then what do you suggest? Tolvan did not answer. For the first time in his long career, the High Speaker of the Galactic Council had nothing to say. In the days that followed, the cracks grew wider. A transport hub lost its guidance system, and 2 cargo ships collided in orbit. A mining colony reported that its drilling equipment had locked up, and no one could restart it. A hospital on the Felrani homeworld discovered that its most advanced surgical machines required a human access code that no longer existed. Each failure was small on its own, but together they formed a picture that no one on the council wanted to see. The galaxy had been built on human labor, human knowledge, and human patience, and all of it was gone. Dremeth stood in the empty hallway where the human delegates had once worked. Their offices were bare. Their desks were clean. Even their nameplates had been taken down. He ran his hand along the wall and felt nothing but cold metal. He had called them useful animals once. He remembered the laughter in the room. He remembered how proud he had felt, how clever. Standing in this empty hallway now, he did not feel clever at all. He felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt afraid. The Council regrets everything after humans leave without a word. Part 1. The Silent Departure. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by any known species. It floated at the center of the Veloran system like a silver moon, covered in glass and light. Inside, hundreds of alien races gathered every cycle to argue, trade, and make laws that shaped the lives of trillions. It was supposed to be a place of fairness. It was supposed to be a place where every voice mattered. But everyone who had spent more than a day inside those walls knew the truth. Some voices mattered more than others, and the human voice had never mattered much at all. High Speaker Tolvan stood at the center of the Great Hall. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that shifted color depending on his mood. His species, the Felrani, had led the council for over 400 years. They believed they were the wisest race in the galaxy. Most of the other elder species agreed, or at least they pretended to. Tolvan looked out at the rows of seated delegates and felt the usual calm pride that came with power. Everything was in order. Everything was as it should be. He did not yet know that everything was about to fall apart. Thousands of light years away, Commander Han Jisoo sat in the bridge of the warship Baiko. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. She wore the gray uniform of the United Human Fleet, and she had not slept in 2 days. Around her, dozens of officers moved quickly and quietly, carrying out orders that had been planned in secret for over 3 years. On the main screen in front of her, a countdown was running. It showed the number of human ships still inside Council space. The number was dropping fast. Jisoo pressed a button on her chair. How many left? She asked. 47 convoy groups still in transit, said Lieutenant Quan Minji from the navigation console. She was young, barely 25, but her hands were steady and her voice was calm. All on schedule. The last group will cross the border in 6 hours. Jisoo nodded. 6 hours. After 6 hours, there would not be a single human being left in Council space. Not one ship, not one station, not one person. 300 years of membership in the Galactic Council, and they were leaving without saying a single word. She thought about the day she had received the order. It had come directly from the Human Governing Assembly back on Earth. The message had been short. Operation Quiet Sky is approved. Begin full withdrawal. No communications with Council species. No exceptions. She had read it 3 times, and then deleted it, just as the protocol demanded. Nothing the Council did surprised her anymore. For 3 centuries, humans had given everything to the galactic community. They had built ships for species that could not build their own. They had sent their doctors to cure plagues on alien worlds. They had fought in wars that were not theirs, bled on planets whose names they could not even pronounce. And in return, the Council had given them nothing. Humans had no vote. Humans had no seat among the elder races. Every proposal humanity had ever submitted had been delayed, buried, or laughed at. Jisoo remembered the last council session she had attended as a military observer. A delegate from the Morek Combine had stood up and called humans the galaxy's useful animals. Several other delegates had laughed. High Speaker Tolvan had said nothing. He had simply moved on to the next topic. That was the moment Jisoo had stopped being angry. Anger required hope, and she had none left. What replaced it was something colder and much more dangerous. It was patience. Back on Earth, the Assembly had been patient too. For years, they had quietly moved resources, shifted supply lines, and built new infrastructure deep inside human-controlled space, far from Council eyes. They had designed new technology and kept it hidden. They had trained new engineers and told them nothing about the Council. They had created a future that did not include anyone but themselves. And now, that future was arriving. On the bridge of the Baiko, Jisoo watched the countdown. 31 convoy groups remaining, then 20, then 12. Each group carried millions of people. Entire colonies packed up and moved in secret over the span of months. Farms, hospitals, factories, schools, everything had been taken apart and shipped home. On dozens of alien worlds, the places where humans had once lived were now empty buildings and silent streets. Lieutenant Kwon Minji looked up from her screen. Commander, we are receiving signals from several Council monitoring stations. They are asking why so many human ships are moving at once. Jisoo did not hesitate. No response. Yes, Commander. That was the rule. No response, no explanation, no goodbye. The Assembly had been very clear about that. They did not want to give the Council the chance to talk, to negotiate, to make promises they would never keep. They did not want to hear apologies that meant nothing. They simply wanted to leave, and they wanted the silence to say what words could not. Hours passed. The bridge grew quieter as the work neared its end. Officers finished their tasks and sat still, watching the main screen. The last convoy group crossed the border at exactly the time Minji had predicted. A soft chime sounded through the bridge. All human assets have exited Council space, Minji said. Her voice was steady, but Jisoo could see the emotion in her eyes. Operation Quiet Sky is complete. Jisoo stood up. She looked around the bridge at her crew. These were people who had served the Council's wars, who had lost friends defending alien worlds, who had been told again and again that they were not good enough to sit at the table. Now they were free. Send the final signal to Earth, Jisoo said. Tell them it is done. She sat back down and looked at the star map. Behind them, Council space stretched out vast and bright. Ahead of them, human space was dark and quiet, and theirs alone. She felt something she had not felt in years. It was not happiness. It was not pride. It was simply peace. On the Council station, no one noticed anything that night. The delegates slept in their luxury quarters. High Speaker Tolvan reviewed trade reports and found nothing unusual. The galaxy turned slowly in the dark, and no alarm sounded. It would be 3 days before anyone realized the humans were gone, and by then, it would be far too late to do anything about it. The silence had already begun.